Hello my creative critters, and welcome to Sketching with Sarah. I'm Sarah, and today I am very excited to share this little ladybug bunny illustration that I sketched in Procreate on my iPad. I wanted to use this video to share a little bit about how I draw from references and some tips that I use when I do. First, I want to mention where I got inspired to do this drawing in the first place. I was browsing Pinterest trying to think of what to draw for this week's video, and found this illustration of a ladybug bunny by Williamson. I found it on Pinterest, but she posted it on DeviantArt, so I went to DeviantArt to view it, and I couldn't find any other social medias of hers, so I specifically made a DeviantArt profile of my own so I could reach out and ask her if she has any other social media. I did end up finding her personal Twitter, I think, through her Tumblr on her DeviantArt, so I'll definitely be tagging that below as well. I would also love to tag her as my inspiration on Instagram when I post this, so if you happen to know her Instagram, or if she has one, please comment below. I'd love to follow her and tag her. I love supporting other artists, and I think it's so cool when people tell me my art inspired them to create something, so I hope she sees this somehow. I will have her DeviantArt linked in my description of this video for you to check out her other work, because she has all kinds of really cool illustrations. She called this little creature a ladybun, and I just think it's the cutest concept. So I decided to make my own spin on it and use the floppy ears of some domestic bunnies and turn them into the ladybug shell parts with the iconic red and black dots, and give her some other wings too on her back. I had a lot of fun sketching this one out, and I'm really enjoying using these sketchy brushes in Procreate because they make me feel like I'm using charcoal or soft pastels without any of the mess. I think I only spent an hour or so on Wednesday night and finished it up enough to share Thursday morning before work. And for a quick Procreate sketch, I love it. It's just such a cute concept. I mean, it's a little bunny ladybug. I will be the first to say that I hate ladybugs in real life. I just can't stand them, and they bite, but the red with the black dots is super cute, I have to admit. And pairing it with a cute little floppy-eared bunny, how can you hate on this little guy? I found a really cute photo on Pinterest of a floppy-eared bunny, and I used this drawing idea as an excuse to study a bunny and draw from a reference. So now I want to share some tips that I learned from art school and that I use when I draw from a reference or from observation. I first want to start off by saying that using references is so important as an artist. I'm a strong believer that drawing from photography and from life is so important to learn the form and study how light hits things, and just overall learn how things work in 3D and how to translate that into a drawing. It's always, of course, the best practice to take your own reference photos to use and draw from, but that's not always possible. If you're familiar with my art, I love drawing animals, and I just simply don't have access to wild animals, for example, like a tiger that I can pose and take my own reference photos of. For a lot of the work that I do, I use lots of reference photography of an animal as I draw them, because it's not like I can just go grab my pet crocodile and pose it for a drawing, you know? I think there's nothing wrong with looking at photos for reference as long as you change it up and add your own style to it. I want to be clear that if you're using a reference to study the form and proportions, or to learn about the animal or subject you're drawing, I think it's okay to try and recreate photos or other art for your own private practice. Just don't go posting it or selling the art you make, copying it, saying it's all your own, because that crosses into plagiarism territory, and that's not cool. My sketchbook is full of random animal drawings, just looking at animal photography and studying them. I love doing gestural sketches to get the proportions of animals and the movement that is often captured in photography. So I just want to take a second to make it clear that plagiarism is bad and don't do that. However, seeing photos or other artists' work and being inspired to make something your own is what makes an artist an artist. Artists are people, and people get influenced by the world around them to create art. And I think it's such a cool thing to be inspired enough that it makes you want to do something about it and create something of your own. It seriously makes my day when someone says that they saw my art and was inspired to create something. I just think it's so rewarding to know that my art had an impact enough on someone to make them want to get creative too. And I think that's the main goal of my channel, which is to share my passion of animals through art. So if you ever get inspired to create something after seeing my art, please show me and tag me and let me know. It never gets old and I love it. On that note, when something inspires me, it's really important to me to give credit where credit is due, and I love being able to tag the artists that inspire me because then more people get to go check out their art, and it's just so good for the art community as a whole to support one another in any way that we can. A simple like and a share and a comment really goes a long way. I mean, I still get excited whenever I see somebody liked my photo on Instagram. It's just that little bump of serotonin or dopamine or whichever, the happy hormone. So enough of this flowery, artistic mumbo jumbo. Now let me explain the process and how I tackle studying from a reference. I always start with some scribbles and slowly refine and clean up shapes as I go along. I always start with just a loose sketch to plan out either composition or how things are proportioned on the page. I think it's so important to try to not focus on a detail like starting with the nose, for example, and get that perfect and then move outward to the eyes and ears, because then you spend all that time and you might realize, if I only drew this eye just a tiny bit to the left or whatever. I've had my fair share of focusing too hard and making a small part of the illustration perfect, just to realize that the composition is now shifted and doesn't work as well anymore because I was locked into the proportions of a super detailed portion of my drawing too early. So I like to start super messy and loosey-goosey and ugly and then make it prettier and better and more detailed along the way. Another tip that I use is I like to start basic and tweak and shave off parts and revise lines to make the whole drawing really general and gestural to more detailed all at the same time. So instead of one area being really detailed and then the rest being like scribbles in the meantime, I like to constantly work around through the whole drawing so that everything is the same level of completeness. That also helps me be able to shift things if I need to and not have to rework a part that I spent a lot of time on, because I've spent the same amount of time everywhere else, so it doesn't feel like that big of a deal to change something, if that makes sense. Another tip that I use is as I am studying a reference or drawing from life, I am always looking at the reference more than my drawing. I have a lot of experience drawing from observation in art school for life drawing and still life projects, and on my own time sketching from life at the zoo and the aquarium and more. And I'm a strong believer that looking at your subject is like 80 to 90% of the process. You need to be looking at the thing you're trying to draw to be able to draw it, and if you get lost in your work and you're just making the joints and other anatomical parts go where you think they should, you aren't really studying the reference and learning it, you're just doing your own thing. There have been times where I get lost in a drawing and then get stuck and can't figure out what is off, and it's usually like a proportional thing that I miss because I was too focused on the details of one area and not looking at the subject. Now, of course, getting lost in your art is not a bad thing at all, but if you're really trying to study a reference, actually looking at the reference is very important. I think to really learn what you're drawing, you need to be looking at the thing more than physically trying to draw it. It's not that I'm completely disconnected from the drawing and like just drawing blindly and not looking as I draw, but it's that I'm focused on the reference and then looking back at my sketch briefly and trying to notice what's different from the two and making tweaks accordingly. I try to pay attention to the negative space shapes and making sure everything aligns and how that all works together with the different parts of the animal or whatever I'm drawing. For this illustration, I did end up making the ears larger and more pronounced so that the focal point could be on the ears and the ladybug pattern on them. There are things that I took artistic liberty on to steer the drawing where I wanted it to go. I mean, obviously this bunny doesn't have wings or antenna in the reference photo, so I use another reference of Ladybug's wings to add more of a simplified, stylized version of it on my LADYBUN. I think it's important when you're looking at references for your art to look at multiple references and take things out from the different references to make the drawing how you want it to look. I really enjoyed sketching in all the fun little wisps of hair and shading it all in and adding highlights where I felt like it. At this point, I'm not really trying to copy the reference because I have the basic shape down. So once I got the main drawing down, I kind of just added what I felt like it needed as far as outlines or more definition. But I hope you guys enjoyed watching me sketch this ladybun in Procreate, and I hope you like or found helpful some of my insight on how I draw from reference. I plan to do a real-time kind of video walking through how I draw from a reference and what goes on in my brain as I draw, but for now I hope this helps. since I'm not actually home to film anything properly right now. But let me know if you'd be interested in a more sit-down, real-time, step-by-step kind of video. I'd love to make one for you guys. And that's one thing I love about my iPad and Procreate is that I can take it and draw wherever I want, and it automatically films process, or I can just screen record it and I don't have to mess with lighting or angles or anything. Also, if you want to see other references and inspiration that I like to look off of, I always have my Pinterest linked in the description, so you can go check out the animals that I've pinned and liked or whatever, and draw from those references too. Anyway, I hope you liked this video and enjoyed watching me create this ladybun. And I hope you like her as much as I do. She truly makes me happy and makes me feel all giddy. I mean, she's a lady bun. How cute is she? If you liked this video, don't forget to leave it a like and subscribe for more art and animal related content. I upload a new video here every Friday, and I would love to have you here to follow along on my YouTube journey. Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay creative, and I will see you in next Friday's video.